Hi everyone and welcome to episode 49 of the ITSM crowd. This is a baffling piece of scheduling because we've got a presenter who is on an entirely different day to us, which has been quite the achievement. So my name's Claire Agutter. I'm going to start by asking our panel to introduce themselves. So going from left to right on my screen, Daniel, if you'd like to say hello, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Breston. I'm a principal consultant for Virtual Clarity, specializing in operating model change management and DevOps.
Thank you very much. And Karen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Ferris out of Melbourne, Australia. It's 6 a.m. in the morning on a different day to everybody else. I'm a consultant at Mechanical Consulting, all things service management and organizational change.
Thank you very much. And Nicholas?
Hi everyone, my name is Nicholas Fredriksson. I'm a Swedish guy that has fled to Brazil, living in Sao Paulo, working with basically everything that has to do with organizational development, IT.
Thank you. And Simone?
Hi everyone, so I'm an Australian who normally is living in France but currently in Sweden on a work assignment, and like the others, really enjoy everything Agile, organizational change, and really I'm a bit of a mixologist. I like to bring a whole lot of different things together.
Thank you very much. So just to sum up, we've got a Texan in London, we've got a UK person in Australia, we've got a Swede in Brazil, and we've got an Australian in Sweden, and I'm still sat in Yorkshire. So it's a bit of a global panel this evening or this morning, depending on where you are. Now, our topic for today is about whether or not Agile is working, and it's Karen that actually suggested this topic, so I'm going to pass over to Karen in a second and she's going to share a bit of the background. But I'd just like to say, for everybody who's watching us live, we do keep an eye on Twitter during the broadcasts. If you've got a question that you'd like to ask any of the panel, if you've got an opinion on Agile and whether it's working or whether it's not, some experiences you want to share, if you pop those on Twitter with the hashtag ITSM crowd, we will pick them up in the next 30 minutes. And if you've got a question, the panel will get to that. So it's something that you can interact with us as well. So I'm going to hand over to you, Karen. If you want to just introduce this topic, explain the background to us and why this is something that you thought was worth discussing in a bit more depth.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Yeah, it was last month I wrote an article on LinkedIn and on my website called Agility, 5 Things That It Isn't. And it was, to me, it was just a little bit of observation. I don't claim to be, an Agile expert or that. It was just things I'd observed. And of all the articles I've ever written, this one just sort of went crazy. It's had about 4,000 views, 123 shares, 560 likes and 61 comments. And the thing about the comments is that everybody was saying things like, "This has struck a chord, great piece, love it, spot on, you've hit the nail on the head." And I was like, whoa, what the hell did I say? So it just, it went off. So basically what the article was saying was, back in 2001, as most people will know, a group of guys got together in Utah, and we're basically saying, how can we deliver software better? And they came up with some ideas. That's all it was. We need to think about, it's all about the people before processes, delivering something of value, working software rather than like lots and lots of documentation, collaboration over contracts. And while everything they said was valuable, they said things on the left were more valuable than things on the right, in a nutshell. Then what's happened is that I think it's just, so the whole idea was absolutely awesome. I think it was a great mindset that they came up with. This is how we should start to behave. And one of the first things I said in the article is that Agile is not a noun. You can't say we're doing Agile. That's like saying we're doing rainy or we're doing sunny. It's an adjective. It's a way of working. It's not a noun. And that's the biggest thing that annoys me when I hear organizations say, we're doing Agile. It's not a thing that you can do. It's a way of thinking. So I think it's been perverted is probably the way I'm seeing it. The other thing I'm seeing is organizations, prescribing how their people are supposed to do this Agile thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the whole thing about Agile, it was about, as I say, a mindset, the idea of it, and it was about allowing teams to self-organize, not prescribing how they had to behave. So command and control does not work when you're trying to have an Agile mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing people, as I say, to self-organize, looking at the teams be able to reflect and looking at continual service improvement. It's also not about IT. It should never have been. It was a mindset that can be across the organization. And it's about outcomes, not how things are delivered in my set. So 2 examples, like I say, obviously hit a chord. People are vehemently agreeing with what I was saying. 2 organizations in Australia, I'll be careful that I don't, people in Australia will know who I'm talking about. There's a large financial institution that about 18 months, 24 months ago said exactly what I'm saying. We are doing Agile, and swept through the organization like the Californian fires that are happening at the moment, and just said, that's it. And said to people, you're no longer a project manager or you're a scrum master. You're no longer this, you're that. A lot of people left the organization as a result, because it was, they were prescribing how this organization was supposed to change. Another organization, so to me, #fail. Another organization I've worked with, there was a lady in HR a number of years ago, came to the organization from her previous organization, had Agile ways of working in place. And she came to this organization, started using Agile ways of working in HR, and other people started to go, oh, that's interesting. I like what you're doing. I like the visibility. I like the approach. I like the way of thinking. And that sort of mindset and ways of doing things started to spread organically through the organization. So you walk into the head office, which is pretty awesome in itself, in structure, and you see all these Kanban boards, but they're all different. The essence is the same, but they're all different. Everyone has, they have stand-ups, which is more a Scrum approach. Some have them weekly, some have them every day. So they're all doing things differently, but it's still, it's a mindset of agility. How do we deliver faster, quicker, value to the business over having reams and reams of documentation and processes and tying ourselves up in knots? So it's 2 extreme examples of organizations doing this agility thing, one totally getting it wrong by prescribing this is how we're going to do it, and one just letting it evolve and letting teams organize themselves. So I thought this would be a good chat. I'd be interested to see what the rest of the panel think. One of the comments on the LinkedIn article was an observation to say, I've never seen so many, I can't remember the exact words, never seen so many comments all in vehement agreement this debate, like, oh, well, you've not said this, and you've not said that. But it was all totally in agreement. And yeah, I thought, all right, I've obviously opened the bonnet on something and found something.
Okay, panel, what do we think?
Well, first I'd like to thank Karen for writing that article, because it was a statement of truth. And I think she hit the nail on the head around the language of Agile. If you look at organizations who are saying they do Agile and you ask them, well, which flavor are you using? They don't recognize the fact, going back to what Karen said, 17 people that met in a ski lodge, and most of them were doing some version of creating software in a way that was delivering stuff faster, safer, and better than other types of coding practices. And as all of us that are on here know, again, as Karen said this, that same philosophy could be applied to service management. It could be applied to all kinds of things, which is why it's such a good blend for organizations wanting to do DevOps. And I think the language part is very important, because people go, we're doing Agile, and you ask them, what do you mean by that? Well, we don't know. Well, what practices do you want to use that people can learn from? Well, we don't know. Well, what metrics do you want to use? Well, we don't know. Well, who are your consumers? Well, we don't know. But you're doing Agile. Oh yeah, we're doing Agile. And not only that, we're doing Agile and we're doing DevOps. You're doing both of them. And that, I get confused.
Actually, Daniel, that is a very, very key point. I think this confusion, and especially when you're also working in different countries with the different languages too, the nuances between English and switching to their own natural language is also an issue. A current client of mine, they're in 4 different countries, their locations. They have manufacturing. They're very large, slow-moving beast, very old manufacturing, and very heavy controls with their change. But they are insisting they're doing DevOps now, or they started off, we're doing ITIL, now we're doing Lean, now we're doing Agile, now we're, doing DevOps. And I think this doing versus to be nuance in the other languages is very different sometimes. So I'm seeing pockets within this organization doing really well. They've got some of the Scrum approaches, the Kanban, the focus on doing just enough documentation and all of this. There are some of the, I guess, ideas, and this is the point, the ideas within the manifesto, starting to feel and live some of those ideas are there. But there's doing versus to be, and those pockets trying to spread to the other parts of the organization is difficult. The one thing I've seen them do in the last 12 months, which I think is very smart, they took one of the IT heads where they were doing quite well, where they've built some really good skills in these teams, and he has now shifted to another part which was quite disparate, still in IT, but quite disparate. And he has now then had some more training and come in there. So slowly but surely it's coming, but it's still a very cumbersome thing to get their mindset around. Stop saying doing, start saying we are, or we are becoming. I like this word, we are becoming.
I think that's a really good point. And that's one of the things I talked about in the article as well, one of the last of the 5 things. As I said, it's not a Band-Aid solution to doing things better. This is more like heart surgery, because the organization has to fundamentally change if it's going to adopt a very different mindset from one it's had previously. So it has to, and again, another phrase that I've been using, it has to deconstruct to reconstruct. It really has to fundamentally shift to be able to adopt that different mindset and way of working. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's why I love what Simone said. It's about the being, not the doing. It's not, we can't just say, tomorrow we're going to do Agile. That's what it's about.
Nicholas, do you want to share some of your Agile experiences? Because I know you've been working internationally recently as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks for the article, first of all, Karen. I really liked it. And it puts, a lot of things in perspective. And I especially like the thing with the Band-Aid solution, because as you organizations, especially the big ones, they tend to think that you can just pour a method or, pour ways of working in this way, pour some culture, difference, which is huge. And I also see a sort of viability of the organization. Can you implement or, start working Agile in all departments, or some more feasible than others? In my current client, for example, I see them, the more innovative systems and applications and parts of the organization, they are working fully Agile. There's tons of funny stuff in their part of the office. They have these Kanban boards, inflatable horses. There's tons of fun. I don't know the story about the horse. Right? I mean, I see they have all this fun stuff, and their part of the office is fun, and they are also, entitled to, their specific places. All the other ones of the headquarters, they, sit wherever there's a place. But these guys, they sit together, they work together, they do their stand-ups, and everyone is talking. So I think it's really working, but that's because they are working with cloud solutions, fast technology, which is more, feasible to work this way. If you're working with heavy manufacturing that cannot go down or cannot be changed, mainframe, perhaps that's, the second step or even third.
I think this, I like what you said about, the first thing is they're talking. I mean, that's such a key thing, that they're actually starting to talk, amongst themselves, but also starting to spread that talk elsewhere. And when people start to see another team having a little bit of fun, they're actually enjoying this conversation. You see that they're so active, and you visually see it, as you walk by as well as hearing it. Then, you start to get a little bit curious and say, how come that team is enjoying themselves? Why aren't they working so hard? And it's not that they're not working hard, they're just working at it in a different way.
Yeah. Sorry, Karen, go on.
With one of the clients I mentioned before, and it wasn't even an IT thing. It wasn't about software delivery. It was an HR department that started using, agile ways of working, that then spread organically through the organization, exactly because of what you've just said. It was like, oh, what are they doing? That looks interesting. Or they're having a bit of fun, and everything's very visible, and it's very tactile, and it's the way they were doing it. And it spread without anybody saying, we're doing agile. No one was doing anything. They just did a different way of working, and it took time. And as I say, everyone's doing it differently. And it's, to me, when I look at this organization, it's in the true essence of, you look at the agile, values. It's about, collaboration and trust and communication, keeping things simple, allowing teams to reflect on what worked, what didn't work, and continually improve. That's not rocket science at the end of the day. It's something we should all aspire to, whatever we call it. Let's call it Fred. Let's do Fred tomorrow.
Oh, no, that's my brother's name. I couldn't live with that.
Awkward.
Sure. I was thinking about something you said, Karen, about, where can you work agile? Actually, many, many years ago, I found it very difficult to work with process development using the traditional process or project methods like waterfall sequential stuff. So I started to defragment everything and make items, and working in the teams, iteratively. So we were doing agile service management like 10 years ago. Because as a consultant, it was so difficult to get the client to agree on a scope. So how far do we bring the processes? Which process do we take first and stuff? So I just started, okay, I'm going to take everything and, spread it out as, user stories or whatever you want to call it. I call it work items at a time. And then suddenly there was something called Agile Service Management. I was like, yeah, that's the words. Working that way for 10 years with great success, because all the confusion about working with process and organization, needing to, iterate and stuff. So
can we defrag cultures as well as processes?
Sure.
I think it goes back to something all of you have said, which is, we're doing this thing. And when you ask them, so what is the outcome of that thing and how fast are you seeing it? They go, well, we have a backlog of work that's going to be deployed in the next 6 to 9 months. And I'm going, okay, where is the agile in that? Webster defines agile as flexible, being able to, bend. I'm assuming that you're using the word agile and saying agility. So where's your agility in doing something in 6 to 9 months, which people have gone and put into some type of big release cycle? Because that's not the intent of this thing called agile. Are you guys seeing that, where people are creating stuff, but it's not getting anywhere.
Yeah, I think because it's become this thing that we need to do. It's the late. I mean, it's not new, as we all know. I mean, the Utah thing was 2001. I think it's 17 years ago that the guys got together. So it's nothing new. And some of the panel said we were doing this before we knew the word agility or agile. But I think organizations, again, it's like we're doing ITIL, we're doing lean, we're doing DevOps. They're using this language, and then you ask the question, you lift up the covers and you go, well, what's agile about that? What's lean? Where's your value add? What's your outcomes? What are you trying to achieve? And they don't have the answers. It's just the latest shiny thing that they think they need to do to be in order to deliver things better. And I think it's just such a shame because, again, going back to what I said at the very beginning, I think the whole principles and values of Agile, or the agility, the way of thinking, was so valuable. And if we just went back to those basics as values and principles, and say, okay, how can we apply those in our workplace? And let's not call it anything. Let's just
be that way. Let's just do it.
Would really add something.
I think there's the cultural thing, especially since I don't think people understand, it's not a replacement. The same with many of the frameworks. These things work together. And I think this idea of, okay, the next thing, we have to get, the next way of doing something, having to prove ourselves to the rest of the business, show that we're putting our energies in the right place. But what they've misunderstood, I think this is part of the challenge, they've misunderstood that it's not a challenge to anything else that they're doing, in sense of it's not a replacement of other methods or anything like that. That if anything else, when you look at the values of it, it flows through everything else. It already is there. And in states of, I guess, goes back to the change resilience, Karen, where are we talking about, are they perverted or are they perturbed? And when I think about it, all the different meanings of perturbation or being perturbed, I really like the astronomy version of it, of explaining being perturbed. So really, it's a small change in an orbit that's caused by the attraction of another celestial body.
Wow, Simone.
So here's this other body of Agile that is attracting or pulling them out of this other orbit, and that's what we're doing, is creating a new orbit for them. And that's in their mind. You've got to create a new orbit for them to move in.
We need you to tweet that definition.
They need to be following their own orbit.
I want to ask you, Karen, was there anybody disagreeing with your article?
Not one disagreement. There was one person that said that I've missed two things, because the title was Agility, 5 Things It Isn't. And a gentleman called Bill Duncan said, 2 things you've missed. It's not new. And it's not limited to the manifesto. He said it can be whatever you want it to be. And I think that's very true. It's a mindset thing. People said things like, we're still arguing about big A, little a. It's like, oh, please. The comments was, finally some common sense. So, I didn't realize what I was writing until I'd written it, obviously. But I haven't. As I said, someone actually commented in the comments about, I can't believe how much vermin agreement in the 60-odd comments there was.
So, I guess tips, everybody. You've all seen Agile done well, hopefully, as well as done badly, or embodied well. If we're not doing Agile, we're being Agile. Tell me some examples of things you've seen working well within organizations.
I think one of the things that is important is to, if you want to be work in an agile way, you need to have your things in order. You need to know what is, coming. It's not. Sometimes I feel that people think, oh, we're going to work agile now, so no more process. Not anymore, and we can do whatever we want in our autonomous teams. Yay, cowboy way again. And that's not it. I mean, it's really about, getting together in a group, together with the client, and, doing the prioritization, whatever way you want, to get the business value in it, and to divide things in minor parts and to iterate. So, I mean, you go down to the basic version. That's it. That's what we want to do. We don't want to do a sequence. We don't want to wait 10 months to release. We want to do it quicker. I mean, so the business can take it as well, so they can receive it. So I think, getting in the same room, around the same table as business representatives and talk about, what kinds of pieces and we need. That's it, I think. And don't tools. Because then it's all about tools, right?
Oh, absolutely. Install something new and we've done it. Daniel, what about you? What have you seen that works?
I like, Agile is that manifesto, which everyone has seen, and then another document that's associated with it that has a few values and has a few principles. And it's interesting to go into an organization and say, here's some red Post-it notes, here's some green Post-it notes. Create your own manifesto. When you say Agile, what are you saying and what aren't you saying? Or, to use Karen's example of what do you mean by change? And well, what do you mean by fast? Or what do you mean by something? And when you put them up, you go, okay, so very clearly you can group those Post-it notes and you can start to see we value this over that. So then you can help them create the values and principles. And then you can start to introduce them to the 27 different flavors that support Agile that predate the 2001 Ski Lodge meeting. And go, okay, of these, which of these would be practical for your organization to start to consider? Scrum is the most prevalent, but that doesn't mean it's the best for you. If people aren't going to get together and create things that's going to be in the customer's hands every 2 weeks, then don't do this because that's going to hurt. Let's think about what else we can do to live up to your manifesto. So I think it's really important to try to, do something that gets people aligned.
Yep, I like that. Simone, what about you? Top tips?
Probably one that's going on with a client at the moment is creating that excitement around this is a living, breathing, dynamic way that we want to be in our team. And so of the teams that I guess that are leading the way within the organization, part of that is about dealing with their fears. Because the fear of failure, the experimentation side of stuff, and because the heavy top side of it, they're saying, yes, we want innovative, creative. Yeah, sure, you can experiment, just don't fail. So, what I've seen actually starting is they're creating a play space. Just like I've seen in some of the other great organizations, they have an area where dealing with their fears about failure, and they're actually running workshops on it. And I think that's a really critical thing. The trust workshops, why are we so scared? What can we do about it? What's the way we want to deal with it? And let's go then play. See, people play war games on, on their computers and stuff like that. It's okay to fail. Nobody's really dead, and in a way it's like, let's find this play space where it's okay if this server falls over. It's not really dead. And so that's what I'm seeing some organizations do now, is creating that dealing with the fear, and let's get excited about experimenting.
Good advice. And Karen, close us off with your top tip.
Yeah, I think just recognition that this isn't something that you just do. This is about a real mindset shift, And I think just go back to basics, pick up the manifesto, the principles and values, and allow teams to self-manage and implement it as they see best, and recognize it's horses for courses. You can't use, do everything in an agile manner. And it's about, customer centricity, self-management, autonomy, adaptability, trust that Simone's just mentioned, being allowed to experiment, and embracing constant change and uncertainty, and being allowed to experiment. And that's not a small thing by any means for most organizations.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to wrap us up now. I am going to say a huge thanks to our panel, to Daniel, to Simone, to Nicholas, and to Karen. And a special thank you to Karen for actually suggesting the topic for this debate. Now, if you are in the UK next week, there will be myself, Simone, and Karen are all speaking at the ITSMF UK conference in London. Daniel's going to be there as well. So if you're around and you want to carry on this debate, then come and find us and talk a little bit agile. But for now, I'm going to say thank you to our panel. Thank you to you all for watching, and we will see you on the next episode of the ITSM Crowd.
Bye, y'all.